Go, Nance.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Kleinberg, a committee person in Penn Valley and one of the vice chairs of the Democratic Committee of Lower Merion and Narberth. And I'm standing in for our chair, Jeff Scott, who's very sorry that he can't be with us tonight. I welcome all of you to our forum, and I first want to thank the candidates for being here and for their commitment to serve Lower Merion. I also thank all of the Lower Merion committee people for joining us and for your ongoing work throughout the year to help Lower Merion. I want to thank all the Lower Merion citizens for attending tonight and for your abiding interest in assuring good governance in our township. We're recording the forum and it will be available in a day or two on the Democratic Committee of Lower Merion and Narberth website for you to review and share with those who couldn't be here. During our forum, all audience members will be muted. Before we begin the forum, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Shapiro, our past chair, who's going to tell us about an exciting and fun event that we're all going to be invited to.
Hi, everybody. So I thought I was out, but they pulled me back in. Heidi Cook and I are co-chairing this year's spring mixer. We just pretty much launched the invite today, if you checked your inbox this morning. The mixer is going to be on May 7th at the Kinwood Club. And for those of you who missed it last year, we tried a new format and it was really quite good. Instead of a sit-down dinner and very formal, it was set up more as a cocktail party with heavy hors d'oeuvres, and people really got to socialize, interact, and we still had a program afterwards, but again, not so formal as in past years, and it was really a big success. We'd really like to see good attendance from the committee this year, so try to make every effort to get out. Sign-ups are live now. You could do it right through our website. If you can't make it, a donation is always welcome. So thanks a lot. You'll be hearing about it more as time goes on. And oh, by the way, shout out to Nancy, who rounded up Joanna McClinton to be our guest speaker. And at the time, she was just the majority leader. Now she's the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House. So good for her and good for Nancy. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jonathan. As I mentioned, we are being recorded, and the recording for this forum and an edited recording of the school board forum will be on the DCLMN website. We're all muted and the chat is limited. Some of the questions that are being asked tonight were sent in advance to the candidates so they could have time to have thoughtful responses. In addition, the candidates were asked to provide written responses to other important questions, which you'll also be able to find on the DCLMN website for your review. The moderator will let candidates know the time allotted for their answers, and the timekeeper will let the candidates know the time they have remaining. Candidates' mics will be muted once the stop sign is raised so that all candidates get a fair amount of time. Now I'd like to introduce Adrienne Seltzer, a committee person who's the chair of our Issues and Policies Committee. And I'd like to thank Adrienne and her entire committee for their work on this forum. Thanks, Adrienne.
Hello, everyone. Again, I would like to thank not only the township candidates, but Narberth Borough candidates who were here today with us, and thank them all for stepping up. This first question will begin with opening statements, and all the candidates were sent this question in advance and instructed to include that in their opening statements. They each have 60 seconds. Here's the question. Please say if you're representing Narberth, or if representing Lower Merion, what area and what ward. Include in your statement your top goal for Lower Merion Township or Narberth for the next 4 years. If you're a new candidate, why are you running for the Board of Commissioners or Borough Council? and describe the skill set that you will bring to that role. For the incumbents, please describe what you feel is your greatest accomplishment as commissioner, or the thing you're most proud of from the last 4 years. I will call on each candidate, and we will start with Jean Borough.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jean Borak, and I'm running for Narberth Borough Council. I'm running because I want all the things that I love about Narberth to stay: the small town feel, the diversity of people, the ease of walking downtown to catch a movie and dinner with my family, or to catch up with a neighbor at the coffee shop. I also want to help address the areas where I think our town can do better. I think we can do a better job of keeping our citizens informed and engaged, and that we can invest in our parks, downtown district, and our streets and sidewalks. I've been serving on Borough Council for a month and a half, and I'm now working to earn your vote for a full term. I've served in various volunteer roles in the community. I'm the vice president of the Narberth Cycling Club. I served on the Parks and Recreation Board, and I served on the Narberth Parking Task Force. I'm a former design professional and business owner. If elected, my top goal will be to invest in our infrastructure to be sustainable and accessible and better meet the needs of our residents. Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer is next. Jennifer Hean.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Gajewski-Heon, a new candidate for Narberth Borough Council. I have a graduate degree in architecture from Penn and work full-time for an architecture firm in Philadelphia, where I have experience working on a range of projects in the city, including work for the Department of Parks and Recreation, the Department of Public Property, and the University of Pennsylvania. I serve as a member of the Historical Architectural Review Board for Narberth, and in practice, I've led research and design on LEED certified buildings that inform my contributions as a member of the Narberth Planning Commission. On Planning Commission, I have helped draft the Green Building Ordinance, and with the Environmental Advisory Council, have continued working toward transitioning Narberth to 100% renewable energy by 2030. I believe that I have the knowledge and experience to make it not only a stable transition, but also a secure investment in a sustainable future for Narberth. So I'm seeking a seat on Borough Council to see the effort through.
Okay, Jim Spear.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Spear. I'm a candidate for Narberth Borough Council. I have been a longtime volunteer in Narberth and in the school district and here on the Democratic Committee. I've been involved in a number of independent projects as well. I would bring to council a deep knowledge of what kinds of policies and actions are effective in Narberth and the role of volunteer resources we have to call on and frankly we rely on in Narberth to make our town function. My long work with the Civic Association YouTube channel, I bring a strong background in communication and making council meetings accessible. And my time on Planning Commission, I have a thorough familiarity with the zoning code and with crafting ordinances. My top goal would be to increase the safety and quality of experience for pedestrians in our residential and business districts. I believe we can focus attention on problem intersections and address speeding and cut through traffic with infrastructure solutions. I'm proud to have the opportunity to serve as a volunteer and
Yes, Jeremiah will be next. Before you start talking, Jeremiah, give Susan a second to reset her timer.
Sure thing.
All right, ready.
All set. Thank you, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Woodring, and I am running for Ward 3 Commissioner of Lower Merion Township. I'm a committee person in Belmont Hills, where I reside with my wife and 2 young daughters. And my ultimate goal as Ward 3 Commissioner would be to help steer Lower Merion towards a more sustainable, equitable, and net zero future by focusing on topics like preservation, sustainability, resiliency, and equity. In addition to being a licensed architect, I hold a few certifications and accreditation for the WELL and LEED building standards, as well as a certified passive house consultant. Architects are trained problem solvers, visionaries, and natural collaborators, and I truly believe that these certifications will help me and demonstrate my knowledge and sustainability as it relates to the built environment. I'm also an adjunct faculty member at TJU and Drexel University, I sit as Vice Chair of the Government Affairs Committee with the Pennsylvania chapter of American Institute of Architects. And I really want to, I think Lower Merion can continue to lead and be the precedent for other districts to look at as it relates to these topics. So with your support, we can steer the township towards a more
Okay. Sarah, can we give them at least to finish their sentence?
Sure.
Okay. So Louis Rossman will be next.
Okay.
And
Set the
wait
timer.
until we have the okay, wait for the thumbs up from Susan that she's reset. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Louis Rossman. I'm running for Commissioner of Ward 9 in Lower Merion Township. I want to thank the Democratic Committee for assembly of this forum. If you walk down the Kinwood Trail, you'll see a bench that says, "Welcome to our neighborhood, the Rossman family." And that says it all. I've served on boards for 26 years. I've been president of my specialty, which is endodontics, a part of dental medicine. I'm a retired dentist. I've served on the foundation of our specialty. I've served on the examining board of our specialty. I'm a past chair of the Division of Endodontics at Albert Einstein Medical Center, recipient of the highest award in our field called the Coolidge Award. I now teach at Einstein and Project Home. I've been a resident for 46 years, raised 2 children. I'm part of the Health Advisory Council here. We've arranged for a grant to provide free dental medicine for the underserved of Lower Merion Township, and I'm involved. I love this township. I want to maintain the stability of this township and the way it is. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Maggie Epstein.
Wait for the, okay. Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm one of the new guys running for Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. I'm running because I can't just complain about things without being part of the solution. It's how I live. It's what I'm trying to teach my kids. It's what I've taught other kids, maybe some of your kids, if they've had me as a teacher. My ward, Ward 11, needs a forward-thinking Democratic representative. We need to focus on more than just preservation, but we need progress as well. People in every ward have questions and need help. I did. It's how I got involved. I still do. So I'm still involved. It would be easier to let someone else handle it, to keep thinking my lack of political experience precludes me from having a valid point of view. But I bring a lot to the table. I'm a working mom, knows how to prioritize family and still get things done. I'm a proven listener and problem solver. I have a strong background in people and facilities management and an extensive background in sustainability. Oof, that time will get you. I have experience with DE&I work, and I'm dedicated to always learning and growing in that area. And that leads me to my top goal, to increase contact with those who've not had a loud enough voice, who don't think they have a seat at the table. If you live here, you belong here, and we want to hear from you. And thank you.
Okay. Dan Bernheim.
We ready to go?
Yep.
Sorry. First, thank everybody for their participation in this. It is greatly appreciated. As introduced, I'm Dan Bernheim. I have been the Commissioner of Ward 1 since 2011. During my tenure, I've had the opportunity to serve as president of our board for 3 terms, and that included during the pandemic. And since the question to the incumbents, what are you most proud of, is, and I take credit for nothing, it's always a team effort, but during the pandemic, it was quite unique, from things from ranging for testing centers all the way down to opening tennis courts near the tail end of it. But this will not surprise any of my colleagues that are here to speak tonight, or those who are listening or who are not on the board. If I have to have one item that bubbles up, that is our fire service and what I've been able to do in that regard. We have 6 fire companies that have operated independently. And most recently, we enacted a strategic plan that recently then has been adopted into a memorandum of understanding that I drafted to change the entire dynamic of our fire service to make it operate as one and not just individual units. Thank you.
Okay. Ray Courtney, next.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you to everyone on the Issues and Policy and Candidate Recruitment Committees. I know it's a lot of work to put this together, and I do appreciate it. I am a committee person from Ward 5, which is North Ardmore and North Wynwood, and I've had the honor of representing Ward 5 on the Board of Commissioners for the last 4 years. When I sought your endorsement 4 years ago, I said I was going to work on climate change. And so what I'm proud of is the efforts that we've put in with regards to environmental sustainability. In the zoning code rewrite, we reduced the height in our commercial zones to save the 5th story of larger buildings for potential environmental sustainability incentive. We signed on to the Ready for 100 to put our township on track to a carbon neutral future. And I'm most proud of the fact that we now have a sustainability manager in our township. In my day job as an engineer, I've worked on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm excited that we have a female engineer in that leadership role. My goal moving forward is to continue our work on sustainability, to bring forth the sustainability plan and invest more resources in capital improvement in that area. Thank you.
Okay. Gilda Kramer.
Hi, I'm Gilda Kramer, Lower Merion, Ward 13 Commissioner. I'm an attorney and I've been a committee person in 13-1 for 20 years and worked with many of you as vice chair for the Eastern Wards for 12 years. My first 2 years on the board when I chaired the Health Committee coincided with the first 2 years of the pandemic. I worked closely with our Health Advisory Council to provide guidance to the community on how to stay safe and get vaccinated, held town halls, and sent frequent newsletters. I focused on human needs in our township and helped to create a restaurant meals for food banks program to address increased food insecurity. We worked with the school district to provide high quality masks to low-income students and their families. Now, and during my next term, I want to focus on investing in the future of our community by making the township more sustainable, resilient, walkable, bikeable, equitable, investing in our facilities and parks, revitalizing Bala Avenue, and building an improved township for the future. Thanks.
Nicely done all. Thank you. Our next question is for the commissioner candidates. You have 60 seconds to answer. Trees are the core of diverse ecosystems and sources of shade and beauty. According to the township, we've lost 22% of our mature tree canopy in the last 15 years due to development and some just natural tree loss. Do you agree or oppose the township's policy that allows developers to replace mature trees with saplings that do not sequester a fraction of the carbon and water of a mature tree? We will start with Jeremiah Woodring on this.
Sure thing. Thank you. So I partially oppose that because the mature trees reduce the carbon footprint, and they've taken a lot more carbon than saplings do. And there was actually, it's a 10 to 12 year period before a sapling even becomes significant in terms of carbon reduction. So I do think when developing, we really should be focusing on essentially density over sprawl to prevent that from happening. But I think we definitely challenge developers to do more in terms of preserving mature trees. And so I just wanted to go ahead and say that, currently the Environmental Advisory Council is finalizing a comprehensive sustainability plan that makes these goals for the built environment obtainable. And I think what we really need to focus on is making sure that we have allies on the board to actually implement these strategies. And so we need smart transit-oriented development that not only meets building code, but is also designed to be 100% electrification in renewable energies.
Thank you. Ray Courtney.
Yes, I do disagree with the township's policy of allowing the replacement of mature trees with saplings. I believe in public, I've made the statement that the trees are our partners in fighting climate change, and I believe that. And I've also been leading the charge to find an alternative for the fields in Black Rock Middle School, as opposed to cutting down the 500 trees there. I'm open for compromise, and I am excited that the work of the intergovernmental committee has produced a compromise and a path forward. I think Jeremiah sort of said it best, that the saplings do not sequester as much carbon as is going to be necessary going forward. But I'm also aware that we can't sort of plant our way out of the effects of climate change, and that we will need to do more than just protect our trees. We also need to curb our emissions in other ways, promote alternative modes of transportation, and plan our development such that we're not taking over open space. We are densifying where it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Louis Rossman, you will be next.
I'm in total agreement with the previous speakers. So sustainability is really important to me. I live next to Bala Avenue. I want to see that developed. City Avenue district, I'm very interested in seeing that. And what made me move to this township, part of it, or the sidewalks and the tree canopy. We need to replace it because on Landrilla Road, where I am, we're being eaten up by a virus that's attacking the sycamore trees. And some of them are taken down. I want to see a mature canopy, not just for my children or my grandchildren, but for me while I'm living here. I enjoy it, and I do think it helps us maintain our environment. Thank you.
Okay. Next will be Maggie Epstein. As soon as we get a thumbs up from Susan, there we go.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear everyone's pro keeping the trees. I've been an environmental science teacher until recently. I did it for almost 20 years. So I could talk to you about trees all night, but not that time. I don't think it's enough to just look at development. I think it goes literally and figuratively deeper than that. We have to really look at all of our policies and look at soil health and what we're doing to preserve the trees we have, because even preventing development isn't going to just solve all the problems. And it's not just carbon sequestration, right? It's what you said, it's the shade, it's the ecosystem, it's the animals, it's everything we need from the trees. So let's look at it from all sides and do what we can to keep them for a long time.
Thank you. Gilda, you'll be next.
This is in some ways a tough issue, and it's always a balancing act when a development project comes before the township. I know that we do try to preserve as many of the mature trees as we can as part of some of the review by the Environmental Advisory Council and as part of the negotiation with the builders. Saplings alone are not a substitute for a beautiful old tree like the oaks that we've lost at our house. And I do believe that we should be upping our game on planting more trees throughout the township for the future. But there's a lot more to sustainability than just trees. We need to up our game on transitioning to electric vehicles and creating an infrastructure for it, improving the efficiency of our buildings, and taking many of the other efforts that we are working on with a sustainability plan.
And Dan Bernheim. Wait a second till.
Thank you. There have been times at the board that I've noted everything that needs to be stated has been said. It's just that everybody hasn't said it. So this is one of those situations where I concur with all that has been noted already. I think it's important to recognize, however, that while there are many things that we can do for improvement, including the issues that have been discussed here about trees, that we haven't been, totally behind the curve in a lot of efforts that we've made in the world of sustainability, not just in connection with the tree canopy, which needs to have attention. The township several years ago went and implemented an aggressive program regarding our use of electricity. We did things internally. If you noted, your street lights are being changed to LED lighting. So we have been not sitting back, but to state that there isn't more that we can do, including addressing the issue that you bring forward here with the tree canopy, is something that I think all the current members of the board and clearly those who are speaking here this evening endorse.
Yes, glad to hear that. This is a question for everyone. You'll have 60 seconds to answer. We're getting back into the environment. So what environmental issues are most pressing for the township and borough? How would you address them? If relevant, please discuss issues around gas-powered leaf blowers, mosquito spraying, community gardens, native plants, and pollinator gardens. We're going to start this one with Ray Courtney.
I think I am unmuted. All right. So yes, gas powered leaf blowers is probably the biggest complaint I've gotten since the pandemic started. It's a noise complaint, but even worse, they pollute tremendously. We have put forth through the Sustainability Committee, which I chair, a suggestion that this should be a goal of the Board of Commissioners going forward to regulate and phase out gas-powered leaf blowers in the township. As far as other suggestions to go further, stormwater management is a huge problem in Lower Merion, and it's also an area that the state, which really dictates what we're allowed to regulate, gives us a lot of leeway. Up until recently, we were pursuing a stormwater fee to direct funds for capital improvement around stormwater, but now there's a court case that's put all of that on hold. But that doesn't mean we should stop investing in those efforts. We should also use the upcoming Ardmore Master Plan to create a sustainability incentive for improvement in commercial development, as well as planning out walkability in our township.
Okay, Louis Rossman next.
Okay, unmute myself. Thank you. I never knew until I retired about leaf blowers. I used to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd get home at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Now that I'm retired, all I hear 6 days, 24 hours a day, or just about, are leaf blowers. And I agree with my neighbors that are complaining. I think they have to be regulated. I don't think they should be taken away, but they have to be regulated somehow. I don't want to put the gardeners out of business. I don't like one-use plastic bags. I also feel like electric vehicles have to be morphed, have to be brought into the suburban police force, the trucks and the cars of the township. I like the idea of green building standards. I don't think we can enforce it, but we can certainly encourage it and maybe work out some sort of thing. And stormwater management, as a fly fisherman, I am all for that. I hate seeing mud and everything else is dumped into Mill Creek when I'm standing there. Thank you very much.
Okay. Maggie Epstein, please.
Hi. So with the environment and these environmental issues, the thing is you can't really hyper focus on one or even two things and make a dent. And truthfully, it's hard to make a dent. So you have to look at it all, you have to look at every aspect of it. I think we need to require environmental impact statements for every new development, every project. I think we need to really be mindful of what we're allowing to be developed as one step. Leaf blowers, I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of not using them, not just from the noise perspective. Lots of places in this world know that they are not great for the environment, and we have other options. Talked about soil health. Soil health is huge. The grass, everything comes from soil health. We need to focus on that, but also the watershed. Mill Creek watershed is already degraded, and we need to look at what we're doing, even with how we salt the streets and how that's affecting that ecosystem. I'm a big fan of electric vehicles. We need a better infrastructure for it. We need to incentivize these things all around Lower Merion. Thank you.
And Gilda Kramer.
I agree with Maggie that we have to look holistically at these sustainability issues, and that's what the township has been doing in developing the sustainability plan. I also serve on the Sustainability Committee, and it is my personal belief that gas-powered leaf blowers and other similar equipment are some of the most polluting and urgent matters to deal with. I've actually been working on this issue with an intern last summer and with members of the EAC to try to bring forward, I hope later this year, some legislation to address the issue. I've been a big proponent of vehicle electrification and creating electric vehicle infrastructure in the township. And also, I think that another thing that's very important is the ARP committee that I've been working on has recommended funding a proposal to provide low and middle income residents with funding to make their properties more efficient electrically and gas-wise.
Thank you. Dan Bernheim.
Thank you. I think that it is clear, unless you've been somewhat hiding under a rock, that the mood of not just this township but of the country is to deal with some of these problems. And taking just any one of them alone is not going to do anything. The concept of trying to address plastic bags, something that we recently, attacked at our board, and that we're going to move forward with. I noted that I read an article that there are more plastic bags in the ocean than fish. I'm curious as to how they figured that out. But nevertheless, whatever we can do to assist. The issue on gas-powered motors, the leaf blowers, is something that we've also addressed, saying, look, we're going to have to phase this in as the technology moves along in order to do this, and also not to put the contractors who do this out of business. Same with electric vehicles. Right now, we explored the police. They're not up for that. For some of the commercial vehicles we use, it's not up to that, but it's going to get there. And we need to be ahead of the curve. So when the technology catches up, we're ready to be on board with it.
Okay. And Jeremiah Woodring.
Good. So this is great because when it comes to sustainability and protecting the natural environment, architects are already part of that conversation. Again, kind of echoing what everyone mentioned, the sustainability plan actually outlines all of these things in terms of a single-use plastic ban, gas-powered leaf blowers, expanding our tree canopy, and implementing electrical vehicles for the township. And again, we need allies on the board who are actually willing to implement these things. And so the efforts can't stop there. We also have to focus on building back biodiversity that we lost over the years. Again, with stormwater runoff, it's not just about the flooding in the street during heavy rains, but it's also about the runoff of pollutants and erosion from any given property. And I think this really starts with educating our residents on topics like invasive plant species, how to manage runoff, the use of chemicals like pesticides and herbicides, and some civic associations like Penn Valley are already starting to do this. And so I personally would like to see a stronger incentive push to electrify all existing buildings and new development as well.
And Jean Burrock.
Hi, yes, thank you for this question. I'm lucky enough to live in Narberth, which has been very forward-thinking with the environment. We have the Narberth EAC, the Shade Tree Commission, we have a climate action plan, and I think we've been very progressive in things like the single-use plastic ban, where you have the sustainable silver certification. I think where we can move forward is greenhouse gas emissions, because Narberth, the greenhouse gas emissions from Narberth account for 27% of the total emissions, which makes it the largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. So prioritizing active transportation and transit use can decrease those emissions, improve public health, reduce traffic congestion. And also, I just want to agree with the stormwater management as well, and that can work together with the active transportation.
Thank you. Jennifer Heon.
Hi, this is a great question. I would like to take this moment to advocate for electrification. I think that it will answer a lot of problems. It will help our climate action plan. It will lower emissions. And just this past summer, as a member of the Planning Commission, I started the process of due diligence with some citizens of Narberth to find a way to get a renewable supply of energy available through the municipality. With the help of the Environmental Advisory Council, we did find an agent, and Narberth is at present has an implementation plan currently under review that could make Narberth the first municipality in the state of Pennsylvania to have a renewable supply of energy available for residents on an opt-out basis. So they would automatically default to renewable energy, and it would be wonderful.
Jim Spear.
Thanks. Yes, well, where to start with talking about the environment in Narberth? There's plenty to talk about. I'm excited about the renewable energy. If Jen didn't make it clear, she is largely responsible for that work that will come to fruition very soon. It's very exciting. But what I'd like to talk about quickly is stream health. If you have followed the issue of the potential development on 3 Elmwood Avenue, when I was on Planning Commission, we voted that down, voted not to recommend that project, largely because of poor drainage and because its proximity to the branch of Indian Creek that runs through Narberth. That property has since been purchased by Narberth and is going to become what's going to be known as Elmwood Park, I believe. A top priority there is to dechannelize the stream, which would have good effects for stormwater runoff and capturing some of that runoff. Other than that, I don't think I have any more time. Thank you.
Okay. We have another question for all of you. And if Sarah was spotlight all the candidates, it's a yes, no. You can unspotlight me if there's to make more room. So please answer yes or no with a thumbs up or thumbs down emoji. Do you support a $15 minimum wage for all township and borough employees, whether full or part-time? It didn't stay up that long. I thought the thumbs up thing stayed up a little longer. Could you guys do me a favor and give me a thumbs up and a thumbs down? Okay. So that looks like everyone but Dan Bernheim said yes. All right. This is a question for all township candidates again. You have 75 seconds to answer this one. Given tight projected annual budgets, does the township have the ability to improve or increase amenities and services like maintaining public property or addressing food insecurity? We will start this one with Gilda Kramer.
I don't think it's any secret that I believe that we have to do serious planning for the things that we want to have in this community. And we have to budget for them, and we're going to have to pay for them. We've gone 12 years with no tax increase, which equates to a 27% decrease when you factor in inflation in our township taxes. We've cut services to the bone. Cut staff to the bone. And while we've maintained services in general, we have not been maintaining our properties in a first-class way. we don't have, aside from the funding that we've gotten with the American Rescue Plan Act funding, we don't have a lot of extra money except for our reserves in order to move the township forward in the ways that we need to. And what we have is we're running a constant deficit budget. We're always taking our reserves to make up the difference between what we're spending and what we're receiving in various forms of taxes. That can't go on forever. And if we want to do things for the future, we're going to have to figure out what's important and make a plan in order to pay for it.
Thank you, Gilda. Dan Bernheim?
Yeah, and in fairness, since I was the only one who answered no to the prior question, am I going to get an opportunity to explain why?
You have 75 seconds.
Fair enough. Look, in connection with the increase for part-time employees, which came up regarding pool personnel, which I actually the one that brought it to the floor. The issue there is that if there's an increase to any cost of the pools are self-sustaining by all of the members of the pools. And unless that changed so that those people weren't the ones that were sponsoring it, then it was problematic. So what also has to be taken into account is the trickle up effect of that from the part-time employees to the full-time employees. And that estimate was almost a $300,000 cost, which equates to a 1% tax increase. So the question is, would you sponsor a 1% tax increase so that you could increase for the part-time employees? Because every full-time employee does not earn less than $15 per hour. That's a different question. That's something I'd endorse, but not the manner in which this is asked unless the other contingencies can be met. So as to your other question in the 2 seconds that I have left, I disagree with my colleague, Gilda Kramer, that our services have been cut because we've had a survey that indicated that they have not. But do I think that we need to plan for the future for what's going forward and that we can sustain no tax cuts down the line? That's highly, highly unlikely.
Okay. Jeremiah Woodring.
So while it's remarkable that we haven't raised taxes in over 12 years, we can't keep relying on the reserve funds to plug holes. And what expense have we paid? Deteriorated parks, vanishing green space, and lack of sidewalks in communities that want them. And so the day will come where we will have to either increase revenue or cut further spending. And I don't see how we can go ahead and cut further spending when we actually need more investment in our infrastructure and our facilities. And so while I know we have a strong revenue with the business privilege and mercantile taxes, and yes, that should continue. We should be open to development, but let's be smart about that because this is actually an opportunity for us to exercise our commitment to sustainability. And so while only 10% of our local taxes go to the township, that's roughly an average of less than $200 a month. And so I agree there will be down the line a tax increase. I believe it should be gradual instead of just something overnight. And additionally, this provides us the opportunity to go ahead and provide incentives then to have people electrify their existing buildings, their new homes, new development. And so we can kind of think of a more innovative way to tackle finance in such a way where we can still attain our goals, as well as, acknowledging the fact that we can't keep relying on reserve funds.
Okay. Ray Courtney will be next.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have $30 million in the bank in the township, and that's not including the 12 to 13 million left to allocate in ARP funds. We budget very conservatively, and that's because a lot of our revenues are non-recurring, right? So we rely on land development and real estate transfer taxes to make up these shortfalls. Some years they do, some years they don't. But in my tenure on the board, that 30 million number really hasn't shifted, which means we're not spending down our reserves. We have a policy that we should maintain 15% of our budget, and we far exceed that. And to me, that says we're not expanding services and amenities like we could. Dan mentioned that, Commissioner Bernheim mentioned that we didn't want to increase minimum wage for part-time employees because it could result in an increase of our pool fees. Well, that's a policy decision right there, that we say that our pool fees should cover the cost of the pools. We increase our Parks and Rec fees to cover the cost of Parks and Rec programming, but fees are just taxes under another name, and it's a regressive form of taxation as opposed to a tax that would come from your property. So I think it would behoove us to have limited incremental tax increase to make up our projected deficits. And I wanted to talk about composting in the Armour Avenue Community Center, which could use more funding.
Okay. Louis Rossman.
11% of the property in this township is occupied by commercial space. I look at the stormwater. It has to be controlled. Perhaps something could be placed on that. But if you look at the average tax per month per individual household, a 5% raise would only be about $5 a month, which doesn't sound like a lot. I love this township. I want us to be an example for every other township. I want us to be #1. And I will fight for that. I'm not here to change. I'm here to learn. I'm going to be on the board. I have to see what the history is. I have to see where we're going. I agree with the seasoned voices from each of you. And I want to learn the history and then see where we go from there. Thank you.
Okay, and then Maggie Epstein.
Right. I'm going to actually quote really quick the mission statement because I love a mission statement. So if you go to read the budget, and you can if you want to, the mission statement quote is to maintain and enhance the highest possible level of public service delivery and quality of life. Maintain and enhance. And so do I think we have the ability? Yes. And beyond that, I think we have the duty to do it. I think it's literally in the mission statement of the township. And I think we're sitting here talking about what we value, and that it comes back to that. What do we value? We've all said we value the environment. I love that. I want to hear more of that. But if we value the environment and we really do want to put our money where our mouth is, it's going to cost at some point. We're going to pay now or we're going to pay later, but it's going to cost. And it's not just the environment. I think that's just because we've all been talking about it. It's also social equity. And, you know, to bring it back to the pools, that's a complex situation, but I really see that as an equity issue. All of our kids, you don't have to have kids, all the Lower Merion kids are our kids, need to have these community experiences. It's important. So it's going to take work and it's going to take money. And I don't think it's easy and I don't think it's simple. I'm not naive, but I also am sitting here as a Democrat who feels really strongly about the things we say we value. And I think we could put our money there.
Thank you. This next question is for our Narberth candidates. You will also have 60 seconds to answer. What steps would you take to keep residents current and foster their engagement on important issues such as the earned income tax, the Narberth Avenue Bridge, and large development projects, keeping in mind that not everyone has internet access? And we'll start with Jennifer this time.
Okay, thank you. I can actually speak from experience as a member of the Historical Architectural Review Board. I was involved in the process of getting the Historic District Ordinance passed. We made efforts to keep the public involved. We held a public forum. We fielded questions. We made statements. Everyone was, voicing concerns, comments. Of course, not every problem was solved, but but voices were heard. We couldn't address everything at that time, but in follow-up now, as a member, we are having public meetings. We are following up with engaging sessions that inform the public about what they can do and how they can address some of the concerns that they had. So I think that I would use that as an example.
Okay, thank you. Jim, I think we know you well enough. I don't have to say everybody's last name anymore. Jim?
Thanks. Yes. So as I mentioned, I have been on the Civic Association for a number of years, and I have led the effort for the past 5 years to film every borough council meeting and every commission meeting. We live streamed them and we archive them on YouTube. There's a vast amount of information available to residents now if they care to watch. What we've really been missing in the last few years is the decline of local reporting. When Cheryl Allison used to actually attend meetings and report on them, we're sort of missing that headline level of information, I believe. So I think we can do more with public postings. I would like to see a regular message board posted downtown, maybe something that's electronically live that gives up-to-date headline style news. We can use our manager, Samantha Bryant, has been really instrumental about keeping residents informed, particularly about the bridge. And it's time to stop, and thank you to the.
Jean?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I concur with everything that Jim and Jen has said. I don't want to repeat what they've said, but I think good communication and public outreach is going to be especially important moving forward, as we need to really keep our finger on the pulse of the community needs and desires as we start the master park planning process. And we need to work with keeping our Narberth business community thriving as development continues on Haverford Avenue. I think the borough has already made lots of strides in improving communication. The things that Jim has mentioned, the public meetings that are available for public viewing, accessible meeting minutes on the website, the weekly borough newsletter. I think we can do better with, we can make some website design changes that would make the information easier to find. And we need to use diverse channels of communication, social media, and everything we can use. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Now we have a question for all our township candidates. You will also have 60 seconds to answer. Township residents are frustrated that important and controversial issues are often at the end of long township meetings. Additionally, residents say that when they speak, there is a lack of response or acknowledgement from the commissioners. What changes in the structure and dynamics of township meetings would you propose to ensure that the public feels their time and participation are valued and appreciated? And we're going to start with Lewis on this one.
It's a great question. There are several problems I see. If you start to have a dialogue openly, these meetings are going to go up to 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
No one's going to reach a conclusion. They can sometimes end in arguments and frustration. Some of these subjects are already under legal evaluation and maybe legal dispute. You really can't, as a board, discuss these things. So you have a number of problems. I can tell you by serving on the Health Advisory Council that we listen to ideas, we process the information, we don't give immediate responses, but we do act on it and act appropriately as a board with a collective group of very intelligent people rendering opinion. And I think that's the way it has to be done. And then a letter is always said at the end, at least from our council. So we do listen. The public has to be aware of that. We don't want to have an argument in public. We want to listen, process the information, and proceed. Thank you.
Maggie Epstein, you'd be next.
Okay, well, in general, I do think you have to start with the onus is on the governing body to communicate to the residents, and it's not easy. You have to reach people using various modalities because not everybody can attend those meetings. It doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for a lot of people. Not everybody knows how to even navigate the website to read the agendas. They're there. I know they're there. I've read them, but I also am aware that not everybody can or does. So as a commissioner, I think that's where you really try to, we can't reach all Lower Merion, but maybe each commissioner is reaching their ward to hear them, because yes, we can't have 400 people speaking at every meeting, but we can amplify their voices. I get it. It's frustrating. There needs to be an outlet. People need to be heard. I know, just watching a recent meeting about sidewalks, and I've been upset about sidewalks, and it's emotional because it's people's children, it's people's safety. So we just need to make sure they're heard. And if we can't actually solve their problems, we need to show them that we're trying and we care, and that there's progress being made, even if it's small steps.
Thank you. Gilda?
I do think that we need to pay more attention to the order at which issues come up before us on a given evening. I know that we've had problems in the past when issues of tax increase votes have come up after midnight, where we've had problems that have been caused by major zoning changes to the City Avenue district being made after midnight. That's not appropriate. The issues of real public concern should be brought to the fore at a time when residents can come and comment and can watch. So in terms of, I really disagree with the question in the sense that it suggests that we don't appreciate and value the input from the public. Quite the contrary. I personally find public comment to be enormously helpful, and I do value it and I do appreciate it.
Dan?
Thank you. So for 6 years, I set that agenda along with the township manager. So what we try to do, and I know that that continues to this day with Todd Sinai at the helm, is to first recognize when there are professionals that are there for a particular matter, so that the members of the public are not, forced to pay additional fees and costs. And then you try to figure out, right, which are the going to be the hot items that may generate, more feedback than others. And keep in mind, certain times there are issues that must come forward and you cannot delay it until another hearing because of statutory requirements. So there's a juggling effort, and sometimes it works well, sometimes candidly it does not, and sometimes the unexpected, comes forth. But there is indeed the effort to try to constantly improve it. And if you were to look at the time records, and we did keep them over the years, how long are the meetings? It was shorter and shorter. And I agree with Gilda's comment, and I would hope everybody here that listens to this understands the commissioners listen very intently to what's being stated. And there are more occasions than I can count where public comment have ended up in swaying votes going different than how it started when the evening began.
Okay. Ray Courtney.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, the Board of Commissioners serves as the legislative and executive branch of government. And I think our agendas often emphasize the executive part of that over the legislative part. I would love to see us rearrange things so that ordinance change discussions are at the top of the agenda instead of the end. We often save our ordinance hearings. So there's a very last item for the Board of Commissioners, and that means the most important work, in my opinion, the legislative work, is happening late at night without all of the public present. I understand Commissioner Bernheim's concern about the cost of having lots of lawyers present for land development. He and I have had this discussion before, and I think it's a great practice of the board to have large land development happen on its own night without other things, and I think we should continue doing that. But I think we should be de-emphasizing the effort that we put into individual land developments and place more effort into changes to the zoning code, changes to the saldo ordinance change in general. And as far as communication with commissioners, all of us attend civic associations. Many of us come to the Democratic Committee frequently, so there is ample opportunity to meet with us in these community organizations.
Okay, Jeremiah Woodring.
Awesome. So yeah, we can't flourish without strong lines of communication between the residents and their elected officials and the civic associations, honestly. And so I would echo what Ray was saying, or Commissioner Courtney was saying about building out more time for bigger issues, issues that are going to impact larger sections of the community. But ultimately, this is also up to the commissioners to kind of, be active on the ground. So participate in the civic associations like they do, find innovative ways to keep people informed, monthly town halls, reoccurring meetings with committee people and community leaders. And, all of this is key because, Belmont Hills Civic Association, no one knows how to navigate, not no one, but most of the crowd's older and they don't know how to navigate the website itself. And so they really rely on our engagement at the civic associations. And so I think it's key to also receive that participation from the public, because some commissioner meetings could see 2 people at the meeting for public comment or 30. So more the better.
Thank you all. We have another Lower Merion question. And this is for all the township candidates, and you have 75 seconds to answer. Most interactions with police officers happen during traffic stops, which have the potential to escalate. What specific actions would you suggest to help people of color feel safe in these situations? And we're going to start with Dan.
Well, first, with all due respect, I don't know that's an accurate statement, or in fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't believe that it is. That all traffic stops, have a tendency to escalate.
No, they just have the potential.
Well, I think any of the dealings then maybe I misheard your question, but any of the dealings the police have is a difficult situation that, if not properly controlled, then has a chance to escalate. But the issue that you raised, the one of the racial, be it reality or perception, and in my mind, it really doesn't make a large difference as to what needs to be done internally within the police. Because whether it's a reality or perception of the community, it needs to be addressed that there is a large section of the community that thinks that either they are being, pointed out indiscriminately, where the statistics may not bear that out, but the community needs to feel safe as a whole. And the very best way to do that is through communication. And long ago, I recommended, in conjunction with the school district, to arranging something for the police and the youth to have activities, be it ride along with a cop or something of that nature, because that's where you're going to start to build the trust with the youth in our township, and it's going to trickle up. And it is a program that I have been trying to see that it gets off the ground with both the police and the school district, and hope that we'll be able to do that. We have enough catalysts to cause us to do something different now.
Okay, Jeremiah?
I'm a firm believer that the commissioners must continue to support our police and provide them with funds and resources needed to carry out their duties effectively and efficiently. However, the issue that we're asking right now is systemic and it's rooted in history. So when we start to talk about, how do we create a stronger connection between our Black and brown communities and the police force, I think it begins with transparency and, getting police in the communities. I echo Commissioner Bernheim's efforts to, create a connection between the police force and youth, because that's essentially where it's all going to start, right? Because when these communities are at such a young age, they're taught not, how to specifically stay out of trouble when around the police force. And those are things that, this mostly white crowd has nothing. We don't have to do some of those things. And so I think this also means creating an open table that anyone can come to for their voices to be heard. And by heard, I don't mean the Board of Commissioners saying, yes, we hear you. It means the community says, yes, we have been heard. And so it's a critical point that we also need to invest in more programs like the Citizens Police Academy and create this better sense of transparency between our communities and the police force.
Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, I think the January 8th incident with the traffic stop, and the last few years we've seen lots of incidents of the police mistreatment of minorities in this country has really brought to the fore some the difference in the way different communities approach interactions with the police, and it really is happening here in Lower Merion. I learned through the public comment we got that evening that people of color are taught to react differently when they're pulled over by a police officer. They're taught to seek out public places. They're not taught to pull over into an immediate driveway or to stop. And I understand why that is. And I think in reaction to that, we in Lower Merion need to conduct a thorough and independent evaluation of our use of force policies and the trainings that our police officers receive, and evaluate if the traffic stops that are being made are really necessary. Are they moving the needle? The traffic complaint that I get the most is around speeding. And I'm pretty sure the traffic stops that are being made are not made for people speeding, since we can't use radar to catch people speeding. And so I would like to see an evaluation of how our police officers are trained.
Okay, thank you. Lewis?
Thank you. I was raised in another township, and I was raised by my parents to look at policemen as your friend. So growing up as a child, going to the crossing guard at that time, wasn't a crossing guard, was a policeman. They were our friends. No matter what color, we didn't differentiate. It was just the way it was. I look at the problems that the police face today, and I fear for them and what their type of response is. I know we have a great, we have a terrific salary schedule here for the police. I know we have a lot of training, a lot of sensitivity that the police go through, but they're put into situations that afterwards we have to learn by our mistakes. And sure, they're going to happen. When I see the police, I talk to them at the various events that we go to. They're friendly, they're first class, they're gentlemen, they're first class women. They're a great police force, and I'm proud to have them protecting us. And I do think we need safety. So yes, psychologists are good, but only in helping them resolve some issues that they may come into, and we don't know until it happens. Thank you.
Okay, Maggie.
I want to start off by just checking my privilege. I'm sitting here having never felt the fear when being pulled over. I'll admit I may have been pulled over once in my life, but I didn't feel fear, and that's a privilege that I enjoy. And I need to sit here and say that, and I know I'm not the only person on this Zoom that exists in that privilege. And I wouldn't even start to try to answer what I should tell a person of color, any of my friends that have not been able to live in that privilege, how they should react. But one thing that I think we could start with, something we did with students post George Floyd, when things were very tense, is we had listening sessions where the adults did not speak at all. And we listened to these humans we cared so much about. And we just listened to what they were feeling, how it affected them, and what they needed. And it was incredibly powerful. And yeah, everybody's crying. But beyond that, we're so quick to fix things. And yes, we should. We need to at some point, but it needs to start with actually recognizing what we don't understand and what we need to be told. And we could have more diversity in this community than we do, but we need to really listen to those members of our community who feel fear.
Thank you. Gilda?
What Ray and Maggie said, plus a few things that I'd like to add. One of the things that is very apparent is that there's fear on both sides in any encounter, and between the police and for example, with a traffic stop, there's fear on the part of people who are being stopped, and there's fear on the part of the police officers, because you never know what's going to be the result of that stop. And there have been many officers who have died as a result of traffic stops or nearly died. And I think that it's very important for everybody on all sides to put themselves in the shoes of the other party. And to try to understand how the other one is feeling and how the other one is reacting to what is happening and what they're doing. And I think that we need education, both of our police officers on these issues, and also education of our residents, so that they know how to respond in a way on both sides that will result in de-escalation.
Thank you. Sorry, Narberth, another Lower Merion question. This one is 45 seconds to answer on the same topic. What do you see as the benefits, if any, of creating an ad hoc committee of Lower Merion commissioners and Lower Merion Township residents to monitor incidents and complaints about the police department to improve Lower Merion police policy in regards to the use of force and racial awareness? We're going to start with Ray.
Sure. So I'm not sure everyone is aware, but there is already the Police Minority Relations Committee, which is when the police meets with minorities in the township. So that is one avenue for this. But yeah, I would be in support of a committee that is specifically dedicated for incidents and complaints around the police department and evaluation of that. I think it should involve the Board of Commissioners. I think it should involve the Superintendent of Police and community members who care deeply about these issues.
Okay. Gilda?
I agree that we already have an ad hoc committee. Oh, we're not an ad hoc committee. We have an existing Police Minority Relations Committee that perhaps should be expanded and invigorated and have more representatives of the community involved in it. I think that in terms of improving the policies, that's something that I believe that we can and should be undertaking. I think that there are ways in which we can improve our policies, and I have been spending a lot of time looking into that issue myself, so that I'll be prepared to address those issues as well.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I think that when you talk about having a committee which then reviews incidents, those things actually do at some point bubble up to a committee. It's one that you vote on. It's the Board of Commissioners. And there are certain policies and procedures that are in effect, some which are mandated by a law, others which are set forth by professionals within the field. And we have from time to time brought in other professionals to assist us in the analysis. That's something which is ongoing, because we recognize that you can always raise the bar to improve what the police do, but it is a very difficult and specialized field and requires some specialty from people to provide that input. And the commissioners take a lot of time to analyze that as they go ahead and approve that which is being implemented by our police force through the professionals that are both already hired and those that we retain externally.
Okay. Jeremiah?
So this is the transparency and open table that we were all referring to in our previous question, right? So it's really about sitting down and listening. And, it's not just so much, putting it on the community to become the ones that are, engaging with the Board of Commissioners. This also means Board of Commissioners going out to the communities. This means police going out to the communities, breaking down those barriers and creating more transparency. And so, listening to the communities in terms of, the trends that they're seeing that we're perhaps unaware of is critical. And, whether that results in more funding for police in terms of training and specifically de-escalation training, fantastic. But this also might mean that, we help encourage representation on the board from these communities themselves. So.
Okay. Maggie?
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that I don't think it's calling out anyone or any police force, specifically not our Lower Merion police, in saying that there's room for improvement. There isn't a municipality in this country that has figured out race and policing. It hasn't been figured out. So there's room for growth across the board. I think we also have to remember we're not existing like as subjects to policing. It's a community. This is something we should be doing in partnership. So yes, there should be a committee. And maybe instead of seeing it as calling out actions, we should be seeing it as calling them into conversation. Maybe it's calling every member of the community, whether on the police force or just here and impacted by it, calling them into the conversation about how we view our relationship with the police and how we can improve it.
Okay, and Louis?
Thank you. Again, we only learn from our mistakes. We have enormous amount of sensitivity training by the police in our township. They all are trying to do the right thing. I truly can't believe they're trying to do the wrong thing or they're exercising an enormous amount. But as Maggie said, we can't put ourselves in that position. There's a police advisory committee. Perhaps that should be reinvigorated. But when the public comes forth, we may not look like, I'm not on the commission, but I was there at the meeting. It may not look like they're listening, but they are listening, and they will go through due deliberation and make things better. We can only make things better by collective agreement. It's fluid in motion, how we're learning and how we're developing and how we're solving these problems. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Narberth, we're back to you. This question is for the Narberth candidates. You have 60 seconds to answer, and we're going to start with Jim Spear.
Adrian, ask the question.
What's the question?
That would be helpful. That was the second part. What is your vision for Sabine Park and the adjacent Borough End buildings?
Are we restarting my time? Okay, great. Sabine Park. Yeah. Okay. So this is, for those who don't know, this is the site of the former Narberth school building that for the past few years has been a rental owned by the borough, and it supplements some of our borough budget, the rental income we get there. Now, the issue is that as commercial landlords, we do not, as a borough, get access to municipal bond rates. We have to, by state law, pay the expenses from the general fund of Narberth. It's a very burdensome thing for us to maintain this building, and it is frankly in deteriorating quality, and it could saddle us with some real hardship if anything really goes wrong. So my view is that this building does have to come down in some fashion, and it represents an opportunity for us to expand green space at Sabine Park and have an enlarged park from corner to corner, bringing it down to Essex Ave. And time to stop again. Thank you.
Okay, Jean?
Yes, thanks for this question. With regards to 201 Sabine, I think the community will likely need to assess and decide whether we want our residents to bear the tax burden for restricting any and all development on that property. And that would also restrict what kind of amenities we can provide to our residents at Sabine Park, or alternatively to allow some development on the Montgomery Avenue side of the property and explore the feasibility of keeping the daycare in our community so that it would decrease the long-term tax burden on residents and allow for community desired amenities at the park. I think it's in the best interest of the borough's residents to explore feasibility of both options and then come to a decision as a community once we have more information. Thanks.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi. Working as an architect, I've seen a lot of buildings in deteriorating conditions on properties that, you might look at and envision it to be something better than it is. I love that. And I love that about what I do. I think that, however, as Narberth really seeks to enforce its historic district ordinance and at the same time work toward meeting our sustainability agenda, we really need to bring in professionals to look at that building to see if any part of it can be saved. I know residents of Narberth look at buildings as really a piece of the fabric of their history, of their community. So we really should fully explore any opportunity to save any part of that building. If it is considered a total loss, then I think we can, look. I agree with Jim. I like the idea of developing it as open green space. I think the residents of Narberth would love that. Thank you.
Okay. This question is for all the candidates, and it's a yes, no. So I'm going to ask Sarah to highlight all our candidates. And unfortunately, the emoji didn't work as planned. So we're going to do thumbs up, thumbs down. Will you work towards incorporating equity into all facets of township and borough business, purchasing, and ordinances? So that's a thumbs up or thumbs down. Will you work towards incorporating equity into all facets of township or borough business, purchasing, and ordinances? Okay. And we have unanimous here. Thank you. Last but not least, this is your closing question that'll be answered by all candidates. This question was sent in advance and it's a little more complicated, but it kind of like brings everything together. Please state 2 specific suggestions that you believe would ensure a meaningful working relationship between the township, borough, and school district to maximize walkability, land development design, playing field space, and the Montgomery Avenue commercial corridor. And also with that, do you support restarting the public intergovernmental committee meetings to work on these shared values? This is 90 seconds you have to answer this. And we're going to start with Gilda.
There we go. I do support restarting the intergovernmental committee meetings to work on issues of shared concern. And I also support involving staff of each entity to collaborate and avoid disputes and litigation, like litigation we've had in the past with the school district. One of my strengths as a commissioner is my longstanding relationships with other elected officials, state representatives, state senators, county officials, school directors, our tax collector, and others. We are one community, and we all need to work together toward shared goals, to share our ideas, and to share our experiences to help one another improve. I want to thank you for your endorsement 4 years ago. I hope that my service has shown that your confidence in me was justified, and I ask for your endorsement for another term. I also ask you to endorse my 3 incumbent colleagues who are seeking another term. While we sometimes have policy differences, all of us are deeply dedicated to doing what we believe is best for this township. All of us devote countless hours to finding solutions to thorny issues and serving the entire township. Dan, Ray, and Sean deserve your support, as do the 3 new candidates, Jeremiah, Lewis, and Maggie, who bring important skills and perspectives to the board.
Thank you. Maggie?
Okay, well, Gilda gave me a couple seconds, so I'm going to thank her right back and say that I appreciate all she's done on the board, and she's been an inspiration, I know, for me personally. To the question, I think there's too much at stake for our kids, for the environment. This is our little corner of the earth to take care of, Lower Merion. Our homes, for most of us, if not, I mean, really most of us, is our biggest investment. We can't afford to be adversarial with the school board or with Narberth Council. We all need to work together, benefit from that cooperation, from finding solutions that benefit the entirety of Lower Merion. I think we need to make sure we're hearing from all of these groups, and I think we do need to hear from the public. Transparency is key. I would support bringing back those intergovernmental meetings and being as transparent as possible. I would also I would support the complete streets approach. Let's really work to integrate transportation that's just not cars, right? We can walk, we can bike, we want to get to those public transportation hubs. I don't have any political motives for running other than I just truly believe as a Democrat that we can improve our township for all of the residents. Let's support Lower Merion Pride events. There's an S on that, not one, many. Let's advocate for accurate historical representation in all our institutions. Let's set the bar for environmental stewardship. Let's do more than we have to and just be the best at it. As a committee member, I've heard about all these things we want to do and our values and how important it is that we stay a democratic Lower Merion. So I'm asking for your endorsement. And as a candidate running against the Republican who's supported by an incumbent, I'm going to ask even more. I'm going to ask for your support going into the election so that we can have a Lower Merion that is as democratic as possible. Thank you.
Louis.
Thank you. Serving on boards for 26 years, I've learned the difference between sitting on a board, listening to the people that are out there that are trying to get a word in, and then also leading these boards, because I've grown to develop those skills of listening and communication. I go into underserved areas every week. North Philadelphia at 22nd and Cecil B. Moore, I help people that are underserved every single week by making them better and making them healthier. At Project Home, under the guidance of Sister Mary, we have developed an endodontic program. I take my residents and we provide free root canals. We have now established this with the Health Advisory Council. And the Health Advisory Council, we came up with a 6-figure grant supported by Pennsylvania, the ARP funds. We are now providing free root canal for the underserved, the invisible in our township, one of the wealthiest municipalities in the country, and we do have 2,500 underserved. So we've bridged this gap, and this will only help our future. I am a like-minded citizen of Lower Merion. I look forward to gaining your support. I need your support to win this election. I plan to continue a communication through emails. I am a liberal in my beliefs, but fiscally responsible. I want your vote, support. I want to carry our values forward. I have always served and left my position better than I found it. Thank you.
Okay. Ray Courtney.
Thank you. And thank you for this question. When I first joined the Board of Commissioners, I was surprised at the sort of level of conflict that existed between the school board and the township. And I sort of attribute that somewhat to we were electing people to the school board who cared about education and then asking them to do land development. Whereas we have an elected body, the township commissioners, whose responsibility is land development, wouldn't it make sense for us to be working together and collaborating more early and often? So when it comes down to 2 concrete suggestions as to how to improve that relationship or to continue the relationship because it has improved, I would say earlier collaboration, which would mean continuing the intergovernmental working group that was set up as a result of the last public meeting of the Intergovernmental Committee. Thus far, that's been myself, Commissioner Gavrin, and from the school board, Lucy Klein and Peter Lee. It was through that group meeting every other month or so over the last couple of years that we were able to come to the compromise on the Black Rock Middle School fields. It's where we have almost achieved a compromise with regard to Arnold Field lights, and I'm optimistic that we will be able to announce something soon. The other thing I would say is that the Democratic Committee doesn't use its influence enough. Everyone on the school board is a Democrat. 12 out of the 14 commissioners, hopefully 13 out of the 14 commissioners next year will be Democrats. Everyone on Borough Council is Democrats. The Democratic Committee could use its influence far more on local issues. We all ask for your endorsement, and I think we've all showed tonight that we deserve it. So I would echo Commissioner Kramer's sentiment that you should endorse all of us. I've run out of time to address public intergovernmental meetings, but I'll just say I accept the criticism that we haven't had one.
Okay, Jeremiah.
So we can only get this work done if commissioners, council, and the school board, as well as civic associations, actively communicate. So these bodies must come together to meet the needs of our residents. And so I would suggest restarting these meetings on a reoccurring basis, but I would also encourage that we perhaps host an annual workshop or charrette of some sorts where, yes, township staff, civic association leaders are all involved in terms of kind of setting up like a strategic plan or goals for the next year where we can go as a township. And so with this reoccurring meetings, we can definitely, up our ante in terms of communication. And I will give credit to the existing school board members and commissioners who have been working together to resolve issues like the concerns around the Oakwell site. However, these relationships really do need to be amplified, and more people need to be in those relationships. And so most of the boards, members of the board and council, as well as school board, come through this democratic committee. So there is no excuse as to why we shouldn't be working together. And so we must get past the notion that our bodies of government do not overlap, because they do, in fact, they do. And luckily, I've had some productive conversations with some of the school board candidates that came before you just a week ago. And so we all have the same common goal, is to improve the quality of life for every resident and child in Lower Merion. So let's go ahead and work together. And I just want to give a quick thank you also to all committee people, but also those of Ward 3. Over the past couple of months, our meet and greets have been some of the most inspiring conversations. So I ask you for your endorsement.
Dan.
First, I have to suspect that anybody that has been listening to this evening has a feel-good moment. I'll remove myself from the equation about what I'm going to say, but you have listened to a lot of very talented and dedicated individuals. And while we may be on that lower rung of the political totem pole, you've got to be saying, wouldn't it be nice if in that top rung you would have the same nice feeling when you walked away from listening to a group of people speak? I mentioned that I've had the privilege of serving as our board president. I also served in both Montgomery County Township Commissioner Association and Eastern Pennsylvania Township Commissioner Association as president of those two boards. And I can't tell you the countless number of times that people would ask the questions, well, how do you do it in Lower Merion? And one of the questions focused upon working together with school boards and be it neighboring townships. So a drop of historical perspective, the Intergovernmental Committee had been dormant. And when a group of us met with members of the school board to discuss about issues of busing and the logistical problems the school board had versus suggestions of the Board of Commissioners had, it was easy for me to recognize doing that more often made sense. So we revitalized the committee. And then I'm going to give credit where he was trying to say to take blame to Ray Courtney, Commissioner Courtney, that he then took over the control and interjected the public aspect to this, so that there was both the private meetings and the public part of it, which served to do very well. So we have the opportunity to put that back in place because it has proven to be something worthwhile to all of us.
Thank you. Jean. Another edge of the triangle.
Yeah, so with regards to restarting the committee, I'd be interested in hearing feedback on what worked well and what didn't work for the previous committee. I think it's a great idea to encourage collaboration between the governing bodies. I think it could be effective if the scope was narrow enough and had a very clear, achievable goal. With that said, whether it's through a committee or another mode of coordination, I'd really like to see collaboration on planning. Number one, planning that prioritizes safe infrastructure for biking and walking near our public schools. I'd like to see collaboration on developing safe routes to school, which includes physical infrastructure like sidewalks, crosswalks, bike routes and outreach programs to educate and encourage safe walking and biking habits for students. And secondly, I'd really like to see collaboration on needed safety improvements along the Montgomery Avenue commercial corridor. I think improving this corridor will create a more comfortable and safer experience for pedestrians and cyclists, and it will dramatically increase access for residents of all ages and help the businesses there thrive. Many students from Penn Valley and Narberth either visit this corridor or cross Montgomery to visit businesses and recreational amenities in the area. So let's work together to make it safer for our children, our parents, and for all. And thank you to this committee for this opportunity to speak to you all. And I ask for your endorsement and support for our running mates, Jen Gajewski-Heon and Jim Spear and myself. Thank you.
Jen.
The Lower Merion School District boundary map that is currently in effect was published 25 years ago in 1998, the same year that the U.S. Green Building Council first published the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design Handbook. Since then, the LEED Handbook has generated new standards for the design of the built environment that have influenced the values we put into practice every day. But why hasn't it reached the school district boundary map? The most relevant chapter here in the book is Sustainable Sites Credit 4.1, which identifies a half-mile walking distance to be a benchmark for walkability. Unfortunately, the vast majority of children in Narberth cannot walk to grade school because they reside within the Belmont Hills District boundary lines, which puts them at a school that is over 2 miles away along busy roads. To give children a more walkable daily commute within their own neighborhood and to preserve the character of a pedestrian-friendly community, I would suggest the following 2 items in support of restarting the public intergovernmental committee meetings. 1, update school district boundary lines to reflect the value of walkability and lower transportation emissions in support of our climate action plan. And 2, develop Narberth's connectivity to the mainline greenway by establishing multimodal pathways for all ages. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for your time and effort in crafting these questions. And I ask for your endorsement on behalf of Jean, Jim, and myself.
Thank you. Jim, it looks like you might have the last word.
Well, that's great. And as soon as I get start my race with the timekeeper, I will, yes, excellent. Okay, so yes, I would definitely support the restart of the intergovernment committee. I enjoy attending meetings. It's one of my favorite things to do. But as a way of keeping in touch with what's going on in the school district and the township and our areas of common interest, I think one of the best things we can do is focus with Lower Merion on our boundaries, especially the Montgomery Avenue Business District. I feel we can work together and construct a business district overlay for that area across both municipalities to address walkability and road crossings and municipal parking, all kinds of things we could be doing better with what's kind of a neglected neighborhood at the moment. The other spot I would focus on is on the other end of town is Wynwood Road, which is treacherous to cross, but in the Woodside area, there's a blind curve that vexes pedestrians there as they cross over to Shortridge. I think we can do a lot with pedestrian and bike infrastructure along Wynwood Road. Since I've finally won my race with the timekeeper, I will, in my last 15 seconds, I will say thank you to the committee for putting on this forum, and I will ask for your vote of confidence on behalf of myself and my 2 running mates, which I'm so pleased to be running with, Jean and Jen, and good night.
Okay. I want to thank all the candidates for their willingness and their openness. And I want to address some of the people here who might not be committee people, but definitely should have an opinion. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen. with you so you can see our Democratic Committee of Lower Merion and Narberth website. This is what it looks like. And it's interesting just for the sustainability part. All the pictures that we have are of trees and nature. So if you want to have a say, you have to get in touch with your committee person. And you do that by going to the About, scrolling down to committee people, clicking on that, and look, there's a list, easy as pie. So if you don't know your precinct, there's something you can click that takes you to the Pennsylvania Department of State, and you will be able to find your precinct and whomever is your committee person. So I'm going to stop the share. And I thought that was good. Another thing we want to ask for, if you go into that website, there's a section where you can volunteer. So I am now going to turn it over. And I just want to thank those people on the Issues and Policy Committee that work tirelessly on the questions, the editing, the more editing, the organizing, the tech, and the moral support. I thank you all for your help. And now, Nancy, take it away.
Thank you. At the start, I thanked the candidates, but now I want to reiterate that and echo what Dan said. I have been so impressed, and I really feel now grateful to each of you for stepping up. And I think your passion, your dedication has been just phenomenal. And I learned a lot from your answers. And I learned a lot from the questions also. And I look forward to seeing written answers that I know we'll see to some other questions soon. I also really want to say, we saw Susan Gilmore's thumb. I can see her face now and her flowers, but there she is. I have organized, run, and been part of probably hundreds of Zooms. I have never seen such a well-organized Zoom in terms of timing and also the candidates' respect for the timing. Of course, I guess the fact that you were muted a few times gave you incentive. But thank you all so very, very much. Remember that the recording of this and the school board forum, which is edited and in a very good form, will be on the DCLMN website. And I just want to remind you of some important dates. First of all, for the committee people and the public, our endorsement meeting where we endorse will be on March 16th. It will be on Zoom and in person. And I want to echo Jonathan's invitation to the spring mixer, which will be on Sunday, May 7th. Guys, it's fun. It really is fun. We'll get to mingle, and there's a cash bar and delicious food. And Joanna McClinton is an amazing, charismatic, inspiring speaker. You'll learn a lot. I really encourage you to attend. And then lastly, the primary is on May 16th. And I just want to remind everyone that if you plan to vote by mail and have not applied, again, you have to apply if you have not reapplied in 2023. So Adrian, candidates, constituents, everyone, thank you so very much. I really thought this forum was amazing.
Thank you.